And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, October 19th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by BetMGM. And if you liked yesterday's slate with 2 games, you've got a lot more than 2 today. 12-game NBA slate. We are in it now. The NBA is back. Basically everybody plays today, or what feels like basically everybody. We have so much to talk about. I can't really mess around. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did it go for you yesterday?
Not great. Lost about 50% on NBA. Had 3 top 10 finishes in NHL. But yeah, not great. And then also, whoever it was that I made the $50 bet with yesterday on Damian Jones, just DM me or PayPal, Venmo, whatever. Good call on that. Didn't go my way.
That is fantastic. Do you remember who it was by any chance?
I think it was like Manny something. I don't know. I would know it if I saw it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
You shouldn't be making bets with that guy. 12 games, lots to talk about. Who hurt you the most yesterday in NBA?
I don't really know. It was weird after the first game. Like, I felt like I needed to be late swapping because, like, Embiid was disappointing in that he scored less than Harden and less than Tatum, but, like, he still also scored 53 raw points. So, like, he was okay. I went to bed before the Lakers game was over. I couldn't watch that.
Same.
Yeah, and, like, Horford sucked, and I had 40-something%, but, like, I was under the field, so I wouldn't say he, like, really hurt.
If Embiid isn't just absolute ass, I've got a decent shot because I basically had no Horford. Like, right. If Embiid is just mildly functional from an energy perspective, if you look at his stat line, you would not, like, that was not what that game looked like for Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I agree with that. Somebody said Kuminga. I don't even know what Kuminga did. I know he didn't do anything in the first half. I don't know where he ended up, but, like, it also didn't matter. Like, I didn't have good teams regardless of Kuminga.
Yeah. Jordan says he dropped his Venmo in here yesterday and it was at Jordan Klein. So good luck there.
I also didn't. I still had a good amount of Kuminga, but I ended up with less. One, because Steve Kerr took back what he had said before, and 2, because I just late swapped, like with Westbrook confirmed starting, and with Kerr acknowledging that he lied. I just late swap stuff. So, like, instead of having 50%, I think I had like 20 or 25 or 30.
It was just over and over. The moment it happened, I was just like, okay, cool. We're getting just absolutely railroaded by Steve Kerr in game 1. And I feel like we're going to get this all year from him. He just doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, and so I also never saw the original quote. I am inclined to just assume Steve Kerr was mindlessly speaking and just said something incorrectly.
Yeah.
NBA beat reporters also generally suck. Like, yes, there's a very good chance Steve Kerr said something, like, not specific and was referring to Clay and Draymond, and some writer just said all the starters are limited. Like, that happens a lot. So it is an early reminder, and you'll see it throughout the year where even some of the sites that, like, report aggregated news that are typically good, they'll report something and it's like, I read the quote and that's not exactly what they said. So it is a reminder to just try and find quotes when you can.
You ready to get into this slate? Because we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Here we go. Kicking it off right away. Orlando Magic, 3.5-point dogs in Detroit, 217 total. We're going to start on the Orlando side. Not a lot of ownership coming into this one. We've got Wendell Carter, 6,100 on DK, projected for about 13% ownership. Cole Anthony, projected for about 12 on FanDuel. Those are the only guys getting into double digits here. I don't see anything that is too crazy. I don't want to get started on Wendell Carter. All of the centers are still underpriced on DraftKings. So when you see one that looks good, you're like, oh, that's going to be the guy. And then you see 15 more as we do the rest of this slate. So what are you seeing here for Orlando? Other than integrating Paolo Banchero, this is basically the same team from last year.
Yeah, I think that they have some guys that look decent, but in the context of a 12-game slate with soft pricing, I don't see a ton that stands out. You know, Wendell Carter Jr. certainly looks fine. He's a good point per minute guy. We have him projected for around 30 minutes at 6,100, so that looks good. But like you were saying, there's always plenty of strong center options. Cole Anthony should get plenty of opportunities here at 6K. We do have Jalen Suggs available. It had seemed late in the preseason like he may not be available, which would have been an even bigger bump for Anthony with Markelle Fultz out as well. But either way, Anthony is someone that averages around the fantasy point per minute. Certainly not afraid to get up his shots, but at 6K, probably priced around where he should be. I am really interested in Franz Wagner. I don't know how useful it is for this slate, though. I think he's going to play a really big role in terms of playmaking for this team this year. Yeah. And so it does make me interested because you're getting, a 6K small forward that's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. But it's game one. We don't know exactly how that's going to look. We don't, we have plenty of options because of the slate size. So I think there's a lot of decent plays from Orlando. I don't think there's any one guy that really stands out.
Go ahead and if you want to just clip the audio of the past 6 seconds where you're like, I think there's a lot of decent plays, but nobody stands out. You're going to say that shit a lot for the rest of this show because it's everybody. It's across the board. I don't have anything here that I really am getting behind. I do like Cole Anthony for 5,800 on FanDuel. I just think the minutes are there, and he's the kind of player that could start to fill that out. But for the most part, for a day like today, any starter that's playing 30 minutes is going to be a decent option in any lineup that shows up. There's not anybody that's truly wildly overpriced. If you tell me Anthony, Franz, Banchero, Carter, Jalen Suggs, it's all going to be, I'm just going to be yeah, those all of those guys can just be in lineups. That doesn't make this analysis better.
Yeah, exactly. It's just they're not going to stand out across the slate, but they're also, as a result, probably not going to be that popular either. So they're guys that I'll like mixing in to, offset ownership elsewhere. I mean, right now, Wendell Carter leading the way at 13%, Cole Anthony at 8%. I do Franz Wagner at 3%. There's a decent chance that, people are going back after this game and going oh, shit, he's not what I was projecting him to be.
On the Detroit side, I think there's a lot more to like here. Slightly new look team. We got Bojan Bogdanovic. We're adding in Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, but Cade Cunningham, 7K on DraftKings, 7,900 on FanDuel. He was my number one contender for today. We've got him projected for 23% ownership on DraftKings, 18 on FanDuel. I think we should just start there. Cade is going to be one of the few people we talk about that I think looks legitimately good today.
Yeah, I'm with you. He looks really good here at 7K. Should play a bunch of minutes. Obviously another year in the league, you should get him even better than he was last year. Certainly stepped up as last year went on as well. So I think Cunningham at 7K looks really good.
Yeah, he's popping quite a bit for me, as is Saddiq Bey. 6K on DraftKings, which I think is about the right price, but he is double-digit owned. He's 5,200 on FanDuel, projected for 27% ownership. I think Saddiq Bey in cash on FanDuel is an absolute guarantee at this particular moment. Very happy to get to Bey. I think he's going to look a little bit better too. Getting that extra spacing, getting another real NBA player like Bojan Bogdanovic out there should just help him a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. And he's somebody where he's always really difficult for me to talk about because his rates never suggest he's going to be really, really good in any given game. But then you just get those games where Saddiq Bey takes over. I told you before, he was one of my favorite best ball picks this year. Yeah. Just because he was going late and it was just cool. I don't have to guess when Saddiq Bey is going to score 50. I don't have to roster him the games that he scores 12. I just get it when he scores 50, which is probably going to happen a decent amount. So that upside's certainly there. He is somebody that when he's popular, I typically don't get to as much just because he is such a weird player in terms of there's no, you don't look at his usage and say oh, he's going to be great, or look at his rebound. There's no one stat you look to that you really feel comfortable with, but he certainly puts it all together a pretty good amount of the time.
Your boy's in chat.
Oh, good. Did he hear what I had said?
I don't think so. He just asked for his money. So we pay our bets around here. I think Bojan looks okay at 5K on DraftKings. He's going to probably feel a little bit more carte blanche to shoot for the Pistons than he did for the Utah Jazz. I think that is a more than viable option. I don't really have too much interest in Ivy or Duren just yet. Do you like anything else for the Pistons?
Not a ton. I mean, I think Isaiah Stewart is sort of interesting with power forward eligibility. No Marvin Bagley, 5,400. If he can stay out of foul trouble, he's a good enough fantasy producer. So I do kind of like that price tag, but again, it's just somebody where you're going to get a lot of guys like that. Same, I think, can be said for Amadou Diallo, or for Jaden Ivey. Where are you at on Amadou Diallo? Because we have him projected for 20 minutes and as a really good value.
I gave him 30 minutes. He's 6,400 on DraftKings.
30 minutes?
You said Jaden Ivey?
Amadou Diallo.
Oh, I gave him 14 minutes. He's, to me, not really all that interesting.
Okay, because we have him at 20 minutes, but also at a point per minute. So, like, I don't think I'm that high, but if that does hold, he's going to project like a good value.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Cunningham, Bay, Boyan, and Ivy at 30 minutes plus. Beef Stew at 28. Everybody else is playing, backup rotation run.
Yeah, okay.
So nothing for me for Diallo.
That's kind of what I thought, but like Diallo obviously caught my eye.
Yeah.
As something to mention.
I mean, it's not out of the realm that he could get to like 24 minutes and Ivy doesn't play nearly as much as I'm thinking, or Killian Hayes plays a little bit less. So eligibilities would be fine. I just don't think he's going to get that much time. I'd say like 20 minutes is probably his ceiling.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's go to.
You were referring to Ivy when you said 30, because I certainly didn't want a 30-minute Amadou Diallo game.
No, not at all. So I just got a message from Chris, so I was doing two things at once. You can relate to that. Wizards and Pacers. Your Wizards are 2-point favorites here against Indiana. Pacers are one of the worst teams in basketball. No one on the Wizards, whether that's DK or FanDuel, got to double digits in ownership. And to me, that makes sense. I don't really see anything even though this isn't a very good defense for the Pacers, it is while Turner's there. When Turner's off, it's really bad. I don't see anybody that immediately jumps off the page is like, I got to have a lot of this guy.
No, same for me at their respective salaries. I am pretty bullish on this Washington team in general this year. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased there, but I think they're going to be better than people give them credit for, at least as long as Porzingis can stay healthy. But I kind of just think that they're correctly priced. There is some upside in Porzingis. I certainly think you could see him just have a really, really good year on this team playing with Beal if he can stay healthy. But 7,800, probably more or less where he should be with Beal active. Beal at 9,600, it just makes it difficult to get there because he's more scoring dependent than a lot of guys that are going to be priced around him. Kuzma's price, I think, is correct. Barton and Morris are probably pretty much correct. I think this team the pricing is where it should be, and that's not the case for a lot of teams today.
Yeah, I got 8%. Beal's 8,200 on FanDuel. There's clearly a ceiling there, $1,400 cheaper than he is on DraftKings. But even still, like a lot of guys just look very similar to Beal, and he was dog shit last year. I expect him to rebound a little bit, but like that could just be a slightly new normal for Beal. Yeah, just a weird team today. Indiana's a little bit different.
Since joining, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was switching to Indiana, but go for the Wizards.
Yeah. I was going to say, since joining Washington, Porzingis has averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute, but Beal was also out for the end of last season, which is a nice chunk of Porzingis' time. So I expect that production to come down at least a little bit. In the minutes that he's played with Beal on did he not play with Beal at all?
Yeah, Beal got shut down for most of the second half of the season, didn't he?
Yeah, I guess I just forgot how late Porzingis got there. Well, and then Porzingis was hurt too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't play alongside each other at all last year. Porzingis was at 1.5 DraftKings points per minute without Beal. I would expect him to be like 1.3 probably.
Yeah, something like that. There's actual value on the opposite side here for the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton has got the keys to the I'd say castle, but it's kind of dilapidated at this point. 7,200 for Halliburton on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel. He is the one person getting double digits in ownership on the DK side, but Buddy Hield at 5,300 on FanDuel. Miles Turner, 6,100 with the power forward eligibility. Both of those guys getting into the double digits. Chris Duarte as a value option in the mid fours, I think is pretty reasonable. I like individual pieces here for Indiana. I think it's pretty clear that Halliburton is the best one you can get to from the Pacers.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's just really good and definitely underpriced here. Curious to see how Washington's defense is this year, but at that price, I don't really care. I mean, that's just a really good price tag on Halliburton. He played 926 minutes after joining Indiana, averaged 1.14 DraftKings points per minute, 36% assist percentage, 20.5% usage rate. Just makes him look really good. And then I agree with you. There's a lot of other pieces as well. I think Miles Turner falls into that Wendell Carter Jr. bucket where he's 6K. He's got a nice ceiling. He looks similar to a lot of other guys. Buddy Hield, certainly, if he's knocking down his shots, is going to grade out as a good small forward option. But then also, you mentioned Duarte. Jalen Smith is questionable. He's 4,400. If he plays, I think he looks good. If he doesn't play, it's going to make somebody out of Isaiah Jackson or O'Shea Brissett, or I guess Terry Taylor, if they were to throw him in, look good. But I think there's something to be had from that group. Smith, obviously the preferred option if he's good to go.
I don't know if the minutes are going to be there, but Benedict Mathurin is 3,900 on FanDuel. They have no reason to not play him a lot. I just don't know if he's going to be able to play enough. Decent price. They're rookie this year, but I don't have too much to add here for the rest of Indiana.
Yeah, I didn't pay a ton of attention to the preseason, but from just seeing tweets and stuff, I think he was pretty impressive. Just getting to the basket, scoring.
I think he just might be capped at like 24 minutes, and I just don't think that's going to work today.
Right. And on DraftKings, he's 5,600.
Yeah, on DraftKings, you don't have to worry about it. He's impossible to play at 5,600. But yeah, today's...
Now I know who's scoring 50 in 24 minutes. Yeah.
If he plays 20... I think it's going to be very hard to have somebody in the winning lineup that plays 24 minutes today.
I mean, that's typically the case, yeah.
Without like a 40.24 minute performance at 4K or something. Not exactly predictable. Well, talk about shitty teams. The Houston Rockets are 10-point underdogs in Atlanta, 233 total. But there's a lot to like here for the Houston side. Jalen Green, 5,400, pulling some ownership. Kevin Porter Jr., fresh off of his extension, 20% owned. Both of these guys, I don't want to say that like they should be 20% owned on this slate, but clear values for nobody else. Like Christian Wood's gone. The other people that were going to take all these shots don't really exist on this team anymore. It's their team. In particular, it's Jalen Green's team. Şengün is going to look like 27 other centers, so it's really hard for me to say anything else there. Jabari Smith is 4,800 on FanDuel, 6,600 on DraftKings. Probably can skip him on DK. Looks a little bit better on FanDuel. How are you feeling about Green and Porter, though?
I feel good about him. You mentioned it. Christian Wood being gone certainly is nice. Şengün will take on a role offensively, but probably not quite as much usage as Christian Wood. Last year, Wood was at 23.7%. Şengün was at 22.4%. Obviously he does have a year under his belt now, so maybe that comes up a bit. But I expect it to be the Jalen Green show, followed by Kevin Porter Jr. Last year, Green averaged 0.86 DraftKings points per minute. Porter was at 1.05. Porter's a little bit more expensive, as he probably should be at this point. But we also saw Green's upside plenty last year, and I expect to see it more this year. So I think those two guys really stand out. Like you said, Şengün, I think looks good, but he's center only, and there's just a lot of guys that look like that. He is a very good offensive player, and the upside's certainly there, but he's just, I think, more comparable to other centers at his price point than Porter and Green are to a lot of guards in their price range.
I wish I had more to say here, but again, it's like my eyes are on the guys that are going to play 30 minutes, and then there's a couple guys that have enough value where you won't feel as bad about getting to them. Şengün, obviously, for one at 5,600, but wait until we see the price on Bam Adebayo. That'll change things up for you a little bit. Just Green and Porter for me are my first two looks. And then we go to the Atlanta side. New look Atlanta Hawks team. Kevin Huerter, gone. Bogdan Bogdanović out for a bit, injured. We've got DeJounte Murray here now playing alongside of Trae Young. Rest of this team looks a little thin if you're trying to fill out the final bits of the rotation. But we got to talk about these top two guys. They're not all that interesting on DK, at least from an ownership perspective. DeJounte Murray is 9,200. Trae Young is 9,500. They are 88 and 9,100 respectively on FanDuel. I love Murray and Trae Young both on FanDuel. I'm over the 15-ish% ownership that we are currently showing. I don't really mind getting to DeAndre Hunter on FanDuel at 4,400. I don't mind getting to $5,800 Capella on FanDuel. I think Atlanta is very much a FanDuel team. Do I mind getting pieces of them on DK? No, not at all. But I don't think they look great on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. They, on DraftKings, to me, are more of a team kind of like Orlando, where there's certainly talent that I like. There's guys that it wouldn't surprise you at all if they have a big game. It's a good matchup. I would say it's more likely than not that at least one guy from this team does just destroy their salary, but yes, there's not one guy that stands out as like, oh, this guy's clearly underpriced. Like, you can make a strong case for playing Trae Young at 9,500, but then, like, my point is you can make the same case for DeJounte Murray at 9,200. You can make a case that Capella is going to go nuts at 6,300 or John Collins at 6,100, and those are all reasonable cases. So I think that drives their ownership down, which makes it so from like an overall exposure standpoint, you're probably not building your night around Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. But within individual lineups, you're going to have your six, just say six for the sake of this conversation,
Sure.
chalk pieces. And then DeJounte Murray fits in really well. Trae Young fits in really well. So the, really, really high upside plays, just guys that don't project quite as good point per dollar as other options that you're going to end up in more total lineups.
Yeah, that's when I did my lap through for the process, which again, guys, 6:30 a.m. Eastern time here, breaking down every single bit of these rotations. I realized pretty quickly that the key is going to be, well, not the key, but you're going to have all of these guys in this mid-tier 5K, 6K range that are so easy to get to, that stand out, that are getting new roles for this season. And you're just going to have all of the ability to take the true pay-up options for the day, the Lukas, the Jokic's, however we want to define them. And you're just going to mix and match those guys, because they're all priced essentially where you would expect the best players to be priced by default. All the misses are happening in the mid-tier. So there's just going to be lineups where it's like, okay, I guess I got Trae Young here. Okay, I guess I got Luka here. And I'm just going to hope that that's the lineup that catches.
Do you know if they were staggering Murray and Young in the preseason?
They have to be.
I mean, yeah, like I would assume so. I don't really put anything past NBA coaches, but
I did not. I
just pulled it up. They were.
Yeah, that if they're not, they should fire Nate McMillan immediately.
Yeah, I assumed they were. I just wanted confirmation, but yeah, they were.
They should be playing 34 minutes a game and as little together as possible.
And
except for
never not having one of them on the floor.
If they ever play minutes where both of them are, sorry, stupid iPhone yelling at me. Yeah. If they ever play minutes where neither one of them is on the floor, it better be because of injury, because that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot, though.
I know. Yeah, I got a bunch of the Hawks on the FanDuel side. I'm not as intrigued on the DK side. Anything else here for Atlanta?
No, I don't think so. Somebody mentioned DeAndre Hunter as a value play. He just looks like 100 other guys to me.
He's 4,400 on FanDuel, so if he's referencing there, I think he looks a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Two small forward and power forward too. Signed his extension. It's always good to see.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
90 million or something?
Something in that neighborhood, yeah. Take that money. That's going to look... There's a possibility, like if he gets healthy, that contract is like 1/3 of what it should be in 3 years.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that I feel like the range of outcomes is like he never ends up being a $90 million player. He ends up being like a $50 million player or like a $200 million player.
Yeah. When he can play, he's solid, and like he's like sort of a 3-and-D guy. He's just never healthy.
Yeah.
NFL Strategy Show Ownership Edition coming up at 11 a.m. after this one, which is going to be here faster than I want it to be. Deeper dive tonight, 4:45. That's going to be Adam and Greg. They'll go for an hour 15, kicking it over to myself and Eric at 6 p.m. for NBA Live Before Lock, going all the way till 7:30. And then that's really all I got from a schedule perspective right now. So we got a couple other things we'll touch on in a bit. This game is the weirdest one for me. It's New Orleans Pelicans at the Brooklyn Nets. Pels are 3-point dogs, 230 total. This is two teams that are all offense, bad defenses, or at least what I'm expecting to be bad defenses. And yet I can't really get to them. So I'm curious here. We've got Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Joe Val, all around 10% owned. That seems totally reasonable to me. I like Herb Jones a little bit at 4,200. Zion at 9,100, shoulder shrug. I assume he's not playing 36 minutes. I just don't know how to prioritize the Pelicans. This is a lot of guys. Ingram is like a 25% usage guy plus. McCollum is, Joe Val's like a 23, 24% guy. Zion should be a 30% usage guy on every team that he's on. I don't know where the shots are kind of go away from. I think we could see CJ lower in usage, higher in assist rate than he normally was, but this is a tricky team to project.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because like last year, once McCollum joined, Ingram, McCollum, and Joe Val played 14 games together. And so you sort of could get a feel for how things were going to go with them. But then throwing Zion in is just huge because, like you said, he shouldn't be taking a backseat usage-wise. And so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Like Brandon Ingram had a 29.4% usage rate in those games with Joe Val, McCollum, and obviously Ingram last year. That probably comes down with Zion. McCollum in those games 27.5% usage rate. Like, I don't think he can maintain a 27.5% usage rate and Ingram can maintain a 29% usage rate. That seems pretty close to impossible. And then, obviously Joval was in like the low 20s as well. So not really sure how it's going to go. I think this could be a team that from a DFS standpoint is really frustrating night to night, but then also useful in tournaments. Looking at the boom bust tool right now, it's another team that looks sort of like Atlanta, where Joval's projected for 10% ownership with a 14% chance of being optimal. McCollum's projected for 10% ownership with a 14% or 15% chance of being optimal. We have Ingram projected to go a little bit over-owned, but still only at 11%. So, and then we have Zion basically getting no ownership and also not really being playable at 9,100, assuming he's playing 30 minutes or so. So I think it's just a team where you're likely to see it kind of change night to night who takes over. Once everybody is healthy and playing full minutes, I expect a huge year out of Zion. But night to night, I think it's going to be difficult to pinpoint exactly who takes over because they have so many capable scorers.
I wish that I could get to a little bit of Zion, but 9,100 is impossible. 8,600 is close to impossible as well. I've got like 8 or 9% of Ingram and Joval and Jones on FanDuel, but I just can't get to the Pels. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, agreed.
And then I go to the Brooklyn side, and it's, I don't know, KD's 10K on both sites. If you want to play KD, obviously go for it. 14% owned on FanDuel. I think he looks a little bit better there. 9,700 for Kyrie on DraftKings seems like a kind of tough justification on this slate. Ben Simmons is 7K and 7,600. I don't see anybody on DraftKings or FanDuel from the Nets that is just like, I want to get this guy a lot, other than clearly taking guys like Durant and Irving work.
Yeah, I'm same page. I don't really see much that stands out. If you build a lineup and you just happen to have the money for Kevin Durant, by all means, same goes for Kyrie. But I think that they're just pretty much correctly priced. I would argue Kyrie's probably overpriced at 9,700 on DraftKings. Yeah. Ben Simmons at 7K, point guard, small forward, going to be easy to get him into lineups, but still just doesn't really stand out on this particular slate outside of just landing in lineups here and there. I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points in this game. It's just really difficult to pinpoint like which guy exceeds their salary because I think for the most part they are priced where they should be.
It's really, really tough here. I thought this game was just going to have like a ton of options. Like nobody would look like exceptional, but everybody was going to look good, and that's just not true. Everybody just doesn't look good. I hate it. Okay, we're going to keep it moving because time is of the essence here. New York Knicks at the Memphis Grizzlies, 226 total. Knicks are 5.5-point dogs. We're getting the debut of Jalen Brunson in this one for the Knicks. I think the Knicks might be one of the worst options today, taking on Memphis. The highest owned guy in the game is Julius Randle at about 10% on FanDuel. I think that works at 7,500. But do I like Brunson here? Yeah, probably 6,900. Maybe gets a little bit more usage now that he's here. I don't think anything stands out for the Knicks.
No, me neither. Like the price point on Julius Randle's kind of tempting just because we know what Julius Randle's capable of doing. But at the same time, playing with Jalen Brunson should cut into his assist numbers. RJ Barrett, obviously is going to have some role in the offense. I just don't think there's a lot that stands out on the slate.
It's hard for me to disagree. It's the Knicks. Like, they're not a fun team to talk about. They're not going to be a very fun team in general. Just like, if you ever want to play them, they need injuries.
Right.
Like Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein are just going to split these center minutes. Julius Randle and Obi Toppin are just going to split these power forward minutes. Like, they've got such a clear delineation and everything that once the salaries stabilize on a couple of these starters, they're just going to be like mostly off the board all the time. Gross. On the Memphis side, a little bit better here. Desmond Bane, 6,100 on DraftKings, the only guy on DK that is in double digits in ownership. Morant and Bane are both in double digits on FanDuel. I like Morant quite a bit for 9,600. It should be pretty easy to get to him on FanDuel. Bane feels a little healthy, but has good eligibility. They're going to be without Jaren Jackson in this one. Slow-Mo not on this team anymore. DeAnthony Melton not on this team anymore. So you're getting a lot of Santi Aldama, David Roddy, Jake LaRavia. You're going to get John Conchar in these games. We know what we're going to get out of Tyus Jones. I think Memphis is better than the Knicks. I just don't know how interesting they are from a fantasy perspective.
Well, you forgot to mention the one that really matters to me. Dillon Brooks doubtful to play today, which means nobody's stealing the ball from John Morant.
Yes.
1.45 DraftKings points per minute without Brooks or Jackson on the floor for Morant nope, without Brooks. Search didn't work right, but without Brooks on the floor, that's the big one anyway. He is just better without Dillon Brooks, as you would expect, because Dillon Brooks loves him some Dillon Brooks. So yeah, I like John Morant. I wish the matchup were more appealing. Like I assume the Knicks are just gonna play at a slow pace like they typically do under Tibbs. But I really like Morant anytime he's playing without Brooks.
I don't think that's crazy. I bet Morant really likes Morant anytime he plays without Brooks.
I think everybody on Memphis probably likes when Morant plays without Brooks.
Yeah. We have him at 6% owned on DK. I got to 14. I think he just stands out as a really nice option. And again, you're just rotating through these pay up options. Do I think that Morant looks like exceptionally better than, a Trae Young today? Not really. Like they're pretty close to each other, but I just want to get to both of them.
Yeah. And that goes back to sort of what I was saying when I was talking about, I think it was Atlanta with Young and Murray, where like they look good, but I don't really want my stand on a slate like this or ever to be like, oh, Trae Young's going to destroy John Morant. It's like, no, I want to just be mixing in John Morant and Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. And that's why your overall exposure doesn't get quite as high, even if you do end up over the field. So without Brooks or Jackson on the floor last year, 1.49 DraftKings points per minute, 39.4% usage rate in 823 minutes for John Morant. Desmond Bane was at 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. Some of those minutes, or a lot of those minutes, probably were without Morant. Yeah. But I think Bane is reasonable here too. Like he's another guy that I think could take a step forward this year. Like he's still improving most likely, and certainly should see more opportunities without Brooks. 347 minutes alongside Morant with no Brooks or Jackson last year. 1.01 DraftKings points per minute, 26.5% usage rate for Desmond Bane.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Morant, there's usage to go around here. Like Bane can take whatever he wants. It's not going to Adams. It's not going to Brandon Clark, Aldama, Roddy, Laravia, Conchar. None of these guys are soaking up usage north of an average player. So I think Desmond Bane is just going to be able to let it sail in this one.
Yeah, I agree. And it's always nice when the players that we want to be shooting are the ones that the team wants to be, the team other than Dillon Brooks wants to be shooting. Yeah. Like it's not, you shouldn't be looking at this. Memphis is looking at this the same way we are. We're going into this game saying we should see a lot of John Morant shots. We should see a lot of Desmond Bane shots. Memphis is going into this game saying John Bane better be shooting a ton.
Yeah. I don't have anybody else really that I don't have a great feel for the Aldama, Roddy, Laravia, Xavier Tillman rotation of minutes. I just don't think any of those guys are going to matter.
Yeah, I've heard of Tillman and Aldama.
Roddy and Laravia are both their draft picks from this year.
Yeah, I kind of assume that. And I know they have Kenneth Lofton Jr. too, I think.
They do.
Yeah, don't think he's going to matter.
No, not so much. Anything else, Knicks and Grizz?
Nope.
We're making good time here. So 660 people in here. Love it. 118 likes. That's actually not that bad for me not having said anything about it for the past half hour. If you're here and you want to help us out a little bit, please hit that thumbs up. It helps us out a ton. The Chicago Bulls, 6.5-point dogs against the Miami Heat, 216 total. I think this might actually be one of the easiest teams to just cross off for today. DeRozan's 8,800 and 8,700 on DK and FanDuel, unowned. Levine is questionable and already potentially dinged up. He's 82 and 7,300. 7,300 for Levine on FanDuel just seems to me like a guy that, if Zach LaVine scores 50 fantasy points today, you're feeling pretty good about it. But unowned. Vooch, unowned. Patrick Williams, Dosunmu, the other two starters for today, unowned. In a matchup against the Heat with a 216 total, I have a very difficult time trying to get to the Chicago team, who I think is going to be starved for offense.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, also we're talking about one of the biggest injury pieces on this slate with Levine being questionable.
Yeah.
For now, I'm assuming that he plays. And obviously, the matchup sucks, but there's with him at 8,200, DeRozan at 8,800, 7,200 for Vooch. There's obviously upside for all three of those guys, but it's tough to want to get to them if Levine's in. If Levine is out, it makes DeRozan and Vooch certainly look a bit better. Opens up more for Caruso and potentially Kobe White as well. But you still have a really difficult matchup against Miami. And then also, if Levine's out, it just increases the chances too that Miami just beats the shit out of this team and really does a good job limiting them offensively. So it would make me more willing to play other Chicago guys if Levine is out, just because of the extra opportunities they get. But I think it's a tough spot to really want to get to, especially if Levine is in.
Yeah, I got to 10% Levine. That's just an ownership thing. I got a little bit of Vooch. That's just an ownership thing. These are both FanDuel decisions, but I can't see a single priority here for an underdog against Miami. What I do want to talk about is Miami. I'm going to start with the most ridiculous one here. $6,400 for Bam Adebayo on DraftKings. He's $1,500 more expensive than that on FanDuel. And I think he's like reasonably priced at $7,900. But of all the center prices I've seen today, $6,400 for Bam is the one that's most incorrect.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous price on Bam, and I assume we're getting him with a lot of ownership, 20%. So,
yes.
Yeah, like makes sense. I think that it's a spot where Bam should be getting the most ownership there. If you want in an individual lineup to say, okay, well, I have some ownership at other positions, I'm going to play Wendell Carter Jr., or I'm going to play Miles Turner, or I'm going to play Şengün, that all makes sense. They certainly have comparable upside. They can, do a lot, but it's almost like the pricing is just based on Bam Adebayo's postseason or something and doesn't account for anything else that has happened in his career.
It makes no sense at all. At 6,400, you're hoping he gets like a little bit over 40 fantasy points, and you're just like, okay, he can be in any lineup and it's real.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's going to happen a lot.
47 games last year, Adebayo played with Jimmy Butler active. 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, 32.5 minutes per game. Just go have your average game and you are a great play.
Yeah. 60th percentile Bam Adebayo today is probably in the optimal lineup. He looks incredible. There are more centers that are going to look really good, but I think Bam is at the tip of that spear. 7,900. I still don't mind getting a little bit, but definitely looks better on DraftKings.
Jimmy Butler is part one of the answer to Eric Johnson's question about Jokic being 15% owned.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Jimmy Butler is 8,400 on FanDuel, 9K on DraftKings. He's not owned on DK. He's sort of in that same field as everybody else we mentioned before. I don't have as much interest in Butler as I do in some of those other guards. I do like him a little bit more on FanDuel, though. Just power forward for Butler is a kind of a problem on DK.
Yeah, agreed. It's weird and also makes it problematic. Also, just the 9K price tag on somebody that doesn't produce quite the same fantasy points as other guys in that range. Like, I would just rather be trying to find ways if I can to get Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, John Morant.
Tyler Hero moving into the starting lineup, 6K on DraftKings, 5,900 on FanDuel. He's pulling a ton of ownership on FanDuel, shooting guard, small forward. Seems reasonable, but I want to temper my expectations now that he's going to be on the floor more with Butler and Bam. Do you have any thoughts on Hero or Lowry? Caleb Martin should be the fifth starter here. Seems like a totally fine value at 3,900 on FanDuel.
I think Hero's underpriced. Like, I agree, obviously the more minutes he's playing with Bam and with Butler, you should see usage go down a bit. He has started 13 games with Jimmy Butler active over the last couple of seasons, 23.5% usage rate, 0.81 DraftKings points per minute. So I do think it's likely that you see a drop off in per minute production from where he's normally at, but that you're also getting more stable minutes. Off the bench, you were a lot of times playing that game of like, all right, is he going to get to 30? Is he going to end up at 26? I think it's a lot more likely that he just plays full starter run now, which is good and helps to offset some of that drop in production. So, and then also, the ceiling obviously is always still there for him. Like, he can just catch fire and be great. So at 6K, certainly willing to play him, but I do think it's worth noting that the more minutes you play with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, the less shots you're getting.
Yep.
At least if Bam Adebayo does what they want them to do. If he plays like playoff Bam, then the more shots you're getting.
Yeah. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, all just standard issue bench guys. Can't really get to them on a 12-gamer. Dwayne Dedmon should be the backup center here, at least until January, at which point he'll probably get shipped out. And that is also irrelevant for today.
Yep.
Anything else, Bulls or Heat?
Nope.
All right. This is where it gets fun, everybody. We got to talk sponsors. Now, I need you guys to pay attention for this one. This is going to sound weird for this show. 158 likes is also weird. Get that to 200 immediately. BetMGM is the sponsor here. And there's a link in the description to this video. You should click it, head on over. If you're in a legal betting state, at least, and you have not signed up at BetMGM yet, sign up. I need you to bet $10 on any NHL money line. That is not me saying this incorrectly. I need you to bet on hockey here. Any NHL money line, $10. Doesn't matter how that bet shakes out. As long as there's a goal in that game, you're going to get $200 in free bets from BetMGM. I know it sounds weird that I'm talking hockey on an NBA show, but that is the deal that BetMGM is providing to you guys. And it is a no-brainer. You end up with essentially a free $200 in bets from BetMGM. If you're looking to get started in sports betting, this is a great way to build up a little bit of a bankroll right out of the gate. Odds Shopper will help you out tremendously for some of the stuff that you want to do if you want to look at player props and everything after that. But to start it off, it's got to be an NHL money line, pre-game NHL money line. $10 on it, $200 in free bets. Good deal. Good deal. Halfway done. Next one up. Cleveland Cavaliers, 2.5-point underdogs in Toronto, 214 total. New look Cavs here. Donovan Mitchell in, Lauri Markkanen out. The most interesting play to me, though, Darius Garland is 7,100 on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel. I love that price tag for 7,100 on Garland. I don't know what it's going to look like with him and Mitchell sharing the ball here. Mitchell gets the benefit of a better price on FanDuel where he's 7,900 up to 85 on DK. What are you going to do here with Garland and Mitchell in their debut together?
So I don't know how it's going to look. I do like that at least Garland was playing with Colin Sexton previously. Not to say that like Mitchell is Sexton or anything, but Sexton's somebody that'll go out there and throw up, an upper 20s usage percentage and take the ball away from Darius Garland. 57 games over the last couple of years where Sexton was active. Garland averaged 0.95 DraftKings points per minute, had a 24% usage rate, 30% assist percentage. If he gives you that level of production, which I think is very reasonable to expect alongside Mitchell, then at 7K, he's still going to look like a good value.
Yep.
Or 7,100.
Yeah, 7,100, that price works. 8,100 on FanDuel, I think, is a little bit too difficult to want to try to prioritize today. Mitchell being under 8K, I think it's interesting. Because of the usage that's going to go to Garland and Mitchell, I'm finding it really difficult to want to go to Mobley or Allen. I certainly don't want to go to Karis LeVert. The rest of Cleveland doesn't look all that good to me. Garland and Mitchell are really the only two guys that I can advocate for.
Yeah, it's pretty tough for me too. I do like that on DraftKings, Mobley has power forward and center eligibility. Like he's somebody that's just talented enough that with MPE at a cheap price tag, I don't mind having in some tournament lineups, but certainly not somebody that I'm going to be getting a lot of exposure to. Allen, I think, is really tough to get to here. He gives you that upside just based on, blocks and obviously just throws up some big double doubles here and there, but he's a little bit more expensive than so many other centers that look really good tonight that it becomes difficult to get there. So for me, I think Garland's my favorite guy from Cleveland on DraftKings. Mitchell at 8,500 looks good. I think 5,900 for Mobley looks fine. But I think Garland is the one I probably get to first.
All righty. Then we go to
Toronto. Somebody said it in chat too, and I meant to say it when I was referencing Garland's numbers with Sexton. Only 9 of those games came from last year. It was similar production last year, but Garland's another guy where he's taking steps forward. He should be improving and is likely to continue doing so. So when I look back at using those numbers with Sexton, I think they're a decent proxy, but also there's a chance that Garland just takes another step forward and that those numbers are low.
The dichotomy between those two guys and figuring out like who's the better player this season is going to be really interesting between Mitchell and Garland. Because there's a realistic chance that it's Darius Garland by the time this season is over.
Agreed.
Toronto looks familiar. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes probably going to play 44 minutes tonight. Siakam is 19% owned on DraftKings. He's a $7,600 center only because they want to make things even more complicated. He looks really good. There's just too many centers for me to want to chase the ownership of any chalky one. 18% owned on FanDuel. You get the power forward eligibility, makes it easier. I think you can justify any one of the Toronto starters. I don't think any of them really look like a priority. Maybe $6,100 Scotty Barnes, but we know what we're getting out of Toronto.
Yeah, and I will say on DraftKings, $7,600 Siakam is another reason why Jokic's ownership is relatively low. It's just a mispricing. The issue is like the position being center only makes it difficult to roster him. But my solution to that isn't going to be to not play Pascal Siakam at 7,600. Like I'm still going to want to get him into lineups. 1.17 DraftKings points per minute in 53 games with Van Vliet active last year, 37.9 minutes per game. It's just a 9K guy at 7,600. So that price tag sort of offsets the fact that he's center only. And it just, again, makes it so my overall exposures to individual centers are just going to be lower because there's a lot that I want to be getting into lineups. He, to me, clearly looks like the best guy there. Scotty Barnes at 6,100, point guard and small forward. So very easy to get into lineups. He's going to look pretty useful as well. I think he's the second best option on Toronto on DraftKings. 0.92 DraftKings points per minute in the 50 games he played with Van Vliet and Siakam active last year. So I like those two guys. And then after that, if you want to just try and catch the Fred Van Vliet 60-point game, they happen. He's 1% owned. I doubt that I'll have much, but he's capable.
Yeah. At least Toronto is the easiest team to just be like, okay, I know exactly what their starters are doing today. Like, no one's sneaky getting 35 minutes for the Raptors outside of those 5 dudes. So it feels great. It's also a really ugly game. Like Toronto's offense is so bad in the half court, and you don't really want to be going up against that Twin Towers defense in the half court either. This could be a slog.
Yeah.
Speaking of Twin Towers defense, the Oklahoma City Thunder, 10.5-point dogs out of the gate in Minnesota, 227 total. We get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander he's able to play for October and November before he gets shut down with laryngitis or something in the tank for Victor Wembanyama. We've got Josh Giddey here, Lou Dort, 3 starters that seem to me pretty easy to want to get to. I think Josh Giddey for 6K on FanDuel stands out as a really interesting play. 7,300 on DraftKings, a little bit less so. I will happily take $8,100 Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on FanDuel. That price to me, not correct at all. This is a guy that loves to chuck it way better than what that's showing. And then I don't really want to touch anything else here for Oklahoma City. This team is a giant tire fire.
Yeah, they concern me more than almost any other team, I think, in terms of what they are going to be doing this year and how often they are going to screw us over with coaching decisions, because they're not shy about it. And I'm not saying they're going to do it right out of the gate, but this is a team last year that I jokingly said, I don't remember, they might have been playing Houston. I don't remember who they were playing, but I jokingly said if whatever game it was competitive down the stretch, you might not see the starters play the fourth quarter. And then OKC actually did not bring their starters back in the fourth quarter of a competitive game. Like, this is a team that does not care about optics or making it seem like they are not trying to lose games. This team just scares me all season long. That being said, there's going to be a lot of games where Giddey has a massive game or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a massive game. So they're fine. But this team, more than anyone else, just makes me really, really uncomfortable unless I'm playing the end of their bench.
Yeah, the only guy that I think Giddey is wildly underpriced and he should be playing starter minutes in this one. And then on the FanDuel side, 8,100 for Shai at 7% ownership. There's nothing stopping Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from going for 50 here. He is ultra talented and smashes with massive usage and efficient shooting when he's available to play. I bet he's feeling fresh as a daisy. I know that he is like sort of semi-dinged up already, but I don't know how true any of that is. Maybe they're just planting the seeds for the shutdown.
Yeah, I kind of just assumed they were going to rest him for the first month of the season.
I'm sure he did too. He's got to be so irritated.
Yeah.
Like, obviously being a general millionaire is great, and your company being like, you don't even have to hang out here for the next 4 months is totally fine too. But at some point in time, I'm sure you want to just like play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, especially when like you presumably enjoy playing basketball and you certainly have worked your entire life to be very good at playing basketball, and now you're just being told not to play.
I'll tell you what, if Shai hates it, like he just saw it as a means to an end, this is the greatest situation ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just cashing checks and being like, oh, I'm going to go to Greece for 3 months while the season's going on. You just land on a yacht like, yeah, life is great. Shout out Sam Presti, man. I hope we suck forever.
41 games with Josh Giddey active last year, 1.16 DraftKings points per minute, 29% usage rate, 29% assist percentage for Gilgeous-Alexander in 34.5 minutes per game.
Do you have Giddey's assist rate in that same scenario?
30.
Okay. Just making sure.
21.3% usage.
I got him at 20 and 31 for that, and he is projecting quite nicely at that 6K mark. Minnesota.
Yeah, also agree with SMP's point there. Like, these people are not wired to lose and enjoy losing. Like,
no, the amount of people that don't care about losing is going to be very minimal.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't have had the dedication to get to that point without that sort of drive to win.
Yeah, for the most part, they are not normal people where it's like they're putting everything in its place, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, I understand we're losing, but I'm getting paid, blah blah. Like, you don't get to that level by being okay with losing.
It's very, very different. You got to be the only way that you can is if you're a center. If you're a guy that is playing basketball because like you're 7 feet tall and that's what you get to do. Those are like, you never hear of any like 6'3" basketball players that are like, I hated it. I was like, well, you could have just did something else. 7-footers just don't have a choice.
Right. Yeah. The people that, were just basically, they couldn't have walked away from basketball if they wanted to. Like, I can get it. But yeah, if you're a 6'3" guard and you're in the NBA, you worked really hard to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to get that NBA title at some point in time. You've been dreaming about it since you were a child. The Minnesota Timberwolves did some roster reconstruction during the offseason. Rudy Gobert now starting center for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The rest of the team got shipped out basically to go to Utah to make this trade work. Anthony Edwards is still here, 8,400 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel. I like that price. Rudy Gobert might be the only center that's priced appropriately other than Jokic, 8,600. I don't have much to add there. 7,800 on FanDuel, so FanDuel got it wrong somehow. Towns is 9,800 and 9,300. Gobert's pulling a bunch of ownership on FanDuel at 7,800. That makes sense. After that, I don't really have any priorities. I don't think these guys look good at all on DraftKings.
No, I mean, the highest ownership projection we have on Minnesota on DraftKings is like just shy of 3%. We have this whole team going under-owned, but also being extremely unlikely to be optimal. Like Gobert, 4% chance of being optimal, 1.5% ownership. Karl-Anthony Towns, 5% chance of being optimal, 2.7% ownership. So like they're fine to like mix in the lineups here and there, but they're still just really low probability plays. And this kind of goes back to, we talk about trying to balance, projection or chances of success with leverage. Like you don't get any points. You don't get extra points for just throwing in a bunch of guys that are 5% likely to succeed because they're 1% owned. That doesn't actually get you very far.
I have boom rates on DraftKings for the 5 starters at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Like, I don't know how to hash that out. That's all the same dude. Tough. Rudy Gobert on FanDuel, for sure a good play just because of that price tag and the way that FanDuel's positioning is set up. I actually like D'Angelo Russell for 6,700 on FanDuel too. Like he doesn't have to worry too much about there's no Beverly here any longer. There's no Beasley that could just shoot their way onto the floor. I don't think they're going to want to play more Jalen Noel or Jordan McLaughlin than they have to. Slow-mo's on the bench now. Like they've got a pretty clear-cut rotation. Do you think Towns is going to play the 5 at all?
I assume they stagger them. Or do they just do you think they go to Reed?
I think it could be Gobert and Reed, and Towns is just the 4.
I guess it could. Like postseason, they certainly stagger them, right?
I just don't know. Like, is Naz Reid better than whoever like the 11th best guy is on this team that would pick up wing rotation minutes? I think the answer is yes right now, but I'm not entirely sure.
By the way, 16 games last year, because you mentioned Patrick Beverley being gone, and I realize people don't view Patrick Beverley as a huge impact guy, but 16 games last year with no Beverley and with Towns and Edwards active, 39.1% assist percentage for D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah. Look, like he gets beat up from having a bad contract and like being one of the worst defensive players in basketball. Decent shooter, really, really good underrated passer that gets people involved. And I'm really interested to see what he can do on the roll with Gobert, with Towns doing some spacing, because Karl-Anthony Towns is the greatest shooting big man in the history of basketball. If you want to say that it's Dirk, fine. If it's not him, it's Towns. The spacing here is going to be interesting. If Anthony Edwards takes a little bit of a leap, like I like this team. They're going to roll people in the regular season because of Gobert.
Yeah. And to put Russell in context, 41 total games with all of Beverly, Towns, and Edwards, 1.05 DraftKings points per minute, 28.9% usage rate. Those 16 games with Towns and Edwards, but no Beverly, 1.27 DraftKings points per minute, 39.1% assist percentage. Usage rate was pretty much constant.
There we go. Like to hear it. Similarly, like a 70, these guys just look better on FanDuel than they do on DraftKings. The only good thing about this 12-game slate is that we really only need to talk about like 3 to 4 people on every team, and you can just be like, yo, like if there aren't a lot of people in chat right now dropping in names like, well, what do you guys think about Kyle Anderson? It's like, yo, doesn't matter at all today.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about these slates. It's like, I don't have to lose $50 debating Damian Jones minutes versus one Scott Anderson.
That's tomorrow. 197 likes. Let's get that number up over 200. I think 225 should be able to happen just like that. We'll get to my Charlotte Hornets taking on the San Antonio Spurs in the Tank Bowl 2, I guess, for today. Somehow, the Hornets are 1.5 point favorites in San Antonio. I think San Antonio is better than Charlotte as presently constituted. No LaMelo Ball, out injured right now. No Miles Bridges, out because he's a piece of garbage, allegedly. And James Bouknight, trying to run down Miles Bridges as the biggest garbage person on the Hornets, has been pulled over for drinking and driving 4 times in the last calendar year, including twice in the past 2 weeks. Don't know if he's going to be able to play today or not, but doesn't seem to be going great for old James Bouknight. Little hooked on the sauce. Let's talk a little bit about Charlotte, because with no LaMelo Ball and no Miles Bridges, their 2 best players, things start to look pretty good here, and San Antonio isn't very good. Terry Rozier is 7,300 and 7,200 and is going to be allowed to shoot all day if he wants to.
And
PJ Washington
wants to.
Yes, he does. PJ Washington is 7,100 on DraftKings, which is tough. 5,900 on FanDuel, which is significantly less tough. Gordon Hayward, it's the first day of the regular season, so you expect him to be healthy and still decent, priced normally. Kelly Oubre loves to chuck, 5,500 and 5,100. I think the Hornets are one of the best teams you can get to today.
Yeah, the page with on-off numbers is taking its time to load, so I don't have it in front of me yet, but I can assure you that without LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, rates go up for pretty much all of these main guys. And like you said, it's a good matchup too. 7,300 for Rozier looks very good. 5,500 for Oubre, who I expect to play around 30 minutes and shoot at will, looks pretty good. I'm with you on Hayward. He should be fresh. He shouldn't be hurt yet. 5,800, certainly leaves some margin for error as well. PJ Washington at 7,100, not quite as appealing to me. I certainly prefer him when he's playing center, and I don't expect that to be the case here. So
27 other centers now.
Yeah. You have Plumlee, you have Richards, you have Williams, who may or may not be in the rotation right now, but I don't expect a lot of center minutes for PJ Washington, which does really hurt his fantasy production, especially when he's priced up. But Rozier, Oubre, Hayward, in particular, I do really like.
I assume you're a little. We've got PJ Washington 3% owned. The power forward center eligibility on FanDuel 5,900. That I think opens him up as an unowned option. Even if we don't really love him as much at power forward, that extra $1,200 matters for me. Oubre's pulling ownership. I mean, Terry Rozier's 38% owned on FanDuel. There's another cash option. You just have to go this way. Like by getting rid of Ball and Bridges, you're freeing up basically half of the shots that are going to get taken in a game. Somebody's got to take them. And I don't know how much it's going to be Nick Richards, Mark Williams, Dennis Smith Jr., Teo Maledon. Like the ass end of this team is ass.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's not a lot of guys that can or will pick up these shots. It's got to be Rozier, Hayward, Oubre mostly.
And like I said, Charlotte looks good, but they don't look as good as the team that looks the best today. That would be the San Antonio Spurs, because one, they get to play the Hornets. Now, be ready. The Hornets defense is going to be better than you think it is because Steve Clifford's here now, and he just gets a league average defense out of anybody that's there. But no DeJounte Murray here any longer. Derek White, not on this team any longer. Keldon Johnson is going to have carte blanche to shoot as much as he wants. He's 5,900 on DraftKings. That price is incredibly broken. 6,800 on FanDuel, I think, is still viable. Devin Vassell, your starting 2-guard, shooting guard, small forward, eligible, 4,600, projected for 30% ownership, warranted. Trey Jones, he's the starting point guard for the Spurs, 4,200, going to play 30-plus minutes, really talented guy, 28% owned. Jakob Poeltl, at least you know his name, 5,800, pulling 23% ownership. Easy to run away from Poeltl's ownership, but it is justified ownership. Those 4 guys for the Spurs are just no-brainer plays today in the tankathon.
Yeah, without a doubt. And even if you look at the boom bust tool, like you have all of this ownership coming in, and they're projected to be over-owned, but it's not by a crazy amount. 26% chance of being optimal for Trey Jones at 28% ownership. 28% chance of being optimal for Devin Vassell at 33%. 17% optimal at 23% ownership for Jakob Poeltl. 15% or 14% optimal percentage at 25 or 26% ownership for Keldon Johnson. Like, none of those numbers are crazy, especially the first 3 that I mentioned. So it's just guys that I fully expect to be building around, obviously within any individual lineup, be balancing in some of these guys where we said not priorities, but high upside. That's what they're for. But especially in NBA, you don't need to you can't run away from every popular player.
No, you can't. And these guys, there's just so much opportunity. Like Jeremy Sohan's going to be starting at the 4 at 5,300. He's probably like appropriately priced. He's 4K on FanDuel, a little bit more interesting. I don't know who the hell's rounding out the rest of this team. Josh Primo's probably the first guy off the bench, but it's Josh Richardson, it's Keita Bates-Diop, it's Zach Collins. I mean, this team is truly terrible. But those starters playing 30 plus minutes, not priced like they should be yet on DraftKings. Heavy chalk for a reason. You're going to get multiple of these guys in cash builds, probably 2 at a minimum, 3 more likely. Wouldn't even shock me if it was 4, but I think Poeltl's probably the easier one to get away from because that stupid Bam had a bio price.
Poeltl, another reason why Jokic is not getting that much ownership.
Yep. This is the best game of the slate, right? From like a quality or like a value perspective.
Yeah.
It's also the worst game on the slate from a basketball perspective.
With no DeJounte Murray on the floor last year, 0.93 DraftKings points per minute for Jones, 0.97 for Vassell, 1 for Keldon Johnson. And I didn't remove Derek White, so these rates could go up even more. 1.21 for Jakob Poeltl in 476 minutes.
Yeah, they look great. Load up on the Hornets and Spurs today, guys. Not going to be a lot of opportunities to say that this season because most of these guys are terrible at basketball. But today, we're getting the benefit of good pricing.
For what it's worth, so I did just take Derek White off. Trey Jones and Devin Vassell stayed about the same. Jakob Poeltl stayed about the same. Keldon Johnson did go from 1 fantasy point to 1.1, and his usage rate goes from like 23 to 25.
Yeah, I got him at 1.05 for the game, and he just looks fantastic. Yeah. Hardwood is the promo code, HARDWOOD. One big word, all caps. Get 10 days of Stokastic Plus Platinum for just $10. $1 a day for everything that we have. And it's not just NBA. You get the rest of baseball season, NFL, PGA, MMA, massive UFC card this Saturday during the day as well. You can't ask for much more. Soccer, college football, and everything you could possibly want. We have it behind the paywall here. $10 for 10 days. Promo code is Hardwood. Get on in here. All right. We've got like 7-8 minutes to go before we got to get out of here. 3 games to do it, but I think we'll be able to move pretty quickly. Denver Nuggets, 8-point favorites in Utah against the corpse of the Utah Jazz. Denver now has Jamal Murray back. They have Michael Porter back. I'm very fascinated by this team. The only person getting any ownership is Nikola Jokic, 10-3 on DK, 11,600 on FanDuel. Still pulling enough ownership. I have nothing else I could say here. If you can get to Nikola Jokic, by all means, I don't think that Kelly Olynyk and Walker Kessler are going to be the guys that slow him down.
Yeah, and it is worth noting, like 10-3 is, a real salary, but it's low on Jokic. Like this guy should not be $400 more than, I love John Morant, but Jokic should not be $400 more than John Morant. He should not be less than $1,000 more than guys like Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. So
FanDuel got it right. 11-6. That's no joke.
Yeah, that's where he should be. So Jokic is still underpriced here. And to Eric Johnson's point, at 15%, I still like him. The answer to why he's projected to be in that range is just all of the other centers are going to eat into ownership. But I want to get to Jokic. And also, somebody in chat had said, so it's safe to say you're going balanced on these slates. Typically, you kind of just don't. Probably a little bit more so early in the season just because there's fewer injuries. But like even here, like there's value. Maybe it's not there's not 3K guys or $3,500 guys, but it's still going to be really easy to get up to your Jokic, Young, Morant, whatever you want from that group. So like I'm thinking of it more in the sense of I doubt that I'm getting to a lot of like $7,500, $8K, $8,500 guys, unless they really stand out like a Terry Rozier. But I still certainly want to be getting to Jokic. He looks fantastic. He does play a position where there's a lot of other really good options, though.
I'll say I don't really have any interest in the rest of Denver. I think Aaron Gordon looks okay for 5K on FanDuel, but like Jamal Murray's 7,700. He's not playing 36 minutes or anything even close to that today. So he's going to be limited, priced a little bit more accordingly on FanDuel. Michael Porter is also going to be limited. Like they are only worried about April at this point in time and getting two guys back that missed the entire season last year. So do you have any interest in the rest of Denver?
Not much. I do think Utah is going to be an appealing matchup this year.
Oh, yeah?
I think, it's worth mentioning just because for so long it's just been like, oh, they're playing Utah. But I expect them not only to suck defensively, but also to play faster. So yes. I do think it's an appealing spot. It's just, where else do you go? Like, could Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. get there at their prices? Absolutely. But the only guy that I'm remotely comfortable with on this slate is Jokic.
Are you comfortable with anybody on the Utah side? This is a new look team. Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Jared Vanderbilt here. Kelly Olynyk is your starting center. Malik Beasley's here. Talen Horton-Tucker's here. It's a completely different team than what you were used to, other than Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson. That said, Markkanen, 5,300, only guy in double digits in ownership on the DK side. Kelly Olynyk at 10% on FanDuel at 4,600, the only guy there. I just have a hard time prioritizing anything because I think their minutes are going to be really flat.
Yeah, that's the issue I'm having as well. Right now, we have Lauri Markkanen projected to lead the team with 31.5 minutes. Colin Sexton at 30.5. Nobody else north of 30. There's plenty of shots to go around for guys like Sexton, Jordan Clarkson when he's on the floor. Like, Malik Beasley is somebody that I liked in best ball because I think there's just a good chance that in a couple of months, you're just like, wow, Beasley shouldn't have been going in the last round of best ball drafts. But tonight, with everything that we have, and he's coming in at 4,400, it's not any real priority for me. I don't see a lot here that stands out.
I'm going to keep it moving then. It's just tough to talk about Utah right now. Dallas Phoenix, this is a game that I definitely want to watch. I don't know if I'm going to make it to 10 o'clock, but we'll see. We know the Mavs, they have no Jalen Brunson at this point. They do now have Christian Wood. Maxi Kleber is questionable for this one. Luka, 10-2 on DK, 10-9 on FanDuel. He falls into the bucket of any other guy you would want to pay up for. If you like Luka Doncic today, by all means, pay up for the guy with one of the bigger ceilings you're going to get to. Otherwise, my recommendation is to not get anything from Dallas. I'm
glad you've come around on Luka, being good.
That was me. Always just didn't like him.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm with you. Luka, sure, if you can get there, especially if you're playing 150 lineups, you probably should be having some Luka just because why would you not want to be getting to some Luka in an individual lineup? If you're playing single entry and you have him, fine. If you don't, fine. It's just kind of if he fits in, you're never going to be upset about getting to him. I do think I would rather get to Jokic first. Outside of that, this is another team where I just think they have a lot of good players that cut into each other enough and are correctly priced enough where I don't need to be getting to them today.
I am with you. It's a great game. Phoenix on the other side, no Jay Crowder by his choice, basically, which makes absolutely no sense. I don't know what's in the water in Phoenix. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton had his squabbles with the coaching staff, but this is still a team that had the best record in basketball last year. Everybody's back, essentially. If you want to say that Crowder's gone, that's fine. Dario Saric is back. Those guys are basically equal in terms of NBA talent. I think Phoenix is still really good. That said, I don't really know who I want to play here. You want to go to Booker? Sure, go ahead. If you like DeAndre Ayton for 6,200 on DraftKings at center, stop me if you've heard this before. There's 15 other versions of DeAndre Ayton going out there today. I have no priorities. This is just a good basketball game.
Yeah, agreed. Ayton, I think, is the most favorably priced guy, but he's a center, and there's a lot of guys in that price range. He's getting 13% ownership, about a 7% chance of being optimal. So, again, good play, but plenty of pivots at lower ownership. Cameron Johnson at 5K, probably playing 28, 30 minutes, but just doesn't really seem totally necessary on this slate. Booker, if you land there, sure, he's capable of lighting it up. He's getting 3% ownership, but just not guys that I expect to have a lot of. It's more so guys where in a lineup where I have the guys that I do expect to have a lot of, I can mix in some Devin Booker and hope he goes for 60.
We're getting two separate questions about Christian Wood. One said that Ayton is terrible at D. That's absolutely not true. The other one is Wood should have massive usage. I mean, I don't know about massive, but the person that's going to have massive usage is named Doncic.
Yeah.
No one can have massive usage if Luka uses 38% of the possessions. We're closing it out now with two ass defenses. Portland, 2-point dogs at Sacramento, 226 total. This is an interesting Portland team. Josh Hart starting 5,200 is pulling the most ownership on both sides. That seems okay to me. I actually like the idea of getting to Dame for 8,200 on FanDuel at 3% ownership. That is a broken price tag. I like the idea of getting to Anthony Simons, 5,700 on FanDuel, 2% owned. The Kings defense is really bad. I'll take a shot on these unowned guards, but I don't see priorities here outside of the fact that I think Josh Hart looks like a decent value.
I think we're a little bit higher on them than you are on Portland.
Okay.
But I mean, sort of. So, like, there's a lot of guys that project well for their salaries, I think. Nurkic, Hart. We have Nas Little, actually, has a decent value at 3,500 if you did need a punt. Grant at 5,700 looks okay. Yeah. But then from, like, an optimal lineup context, you're still not getting a lot showing up outside of Josh Hart. So, same page with you there. 24% optimal percentage for Hart at 21% ownership. And then it's down to, like, a 7% chance of being optimal for Nurkic. 10% ownership, so a good enough play, but not a true priority. So from a priority standpoint, agreed. I think they just project a little bit better than I at least took what you were saying.
Yeah. No, like I'm getting to Lillard and I'm getting to Simons. There's just no ownership coming into these guys behind Josh Hart, but like I like the spot for them. Look, Lillard's 8,200 on FanDuel. I'll take my chances to find out if his abdominal feels better, because he can blow that one out of the water. Sacramento, another team with an ass defense. That's what's going to happen when Domantas Sabonis is your starting center. No Keegan Murray, who I believe is in health and safety protocols. Sabonis, 13% owned on DK, 14 on FanDuel. No one else north of 4% anywhere. I love the idea of getting to De'Aaron Fox, to getting to Barnes, to getting to Kevin Huerter now on Sacramento, because I think the Blazers have one of the 5 worst defenses in the league. They've got no point of attack defenders. This is a game that I really want to target.
This is like Charlotte and San Antonio with less ownership, basically.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. Like, if you told me this game had more ownership than Charlotte and San Antonio, I would just try and play more volume tonight. But this is a really appealing game, and the players just don't stand out quite as much as they do in that other game, so they get less ownership. Sabonis pulling 12%, 8,100, center only issue, but certainly like getting to him if I can. And I'm with you. Barnes, Huerter, Monk getting 1% ownership at 4,200. De'Aaron Fox at 8,300 is going to look good. I think the Kings are just an appealing team, even if it's not like I don't expect to look at my exposures at the end of the night and it just be like Kings all at the top. But I wouldn't be surprised if I just sort of end up overweight on like every main piece from this team.
Mine sort of is. I've got a bunch of Huerter, Sabonis, and Fox right now, and a little bit of the Barnacle of the Bay, Harrison Barnes. This is a fascinating game. Really good late night hammer, in my opinion. I'm not even going to bother asking you your favorite plays for right now. That is so irrelevant. You're going to be on the deeper dive later today. You're going to have your GPP videos out. So much is due to change as these things get dialed in as we make our way out of here. So
injury report video today as well.
Ooh, there you go. Injury report video too. Lots of content coming from Adam. NFL strategy show coming up next. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring this video. We're happy to have you guys. Tons of more basketball content coming up. Good luck tonight, everybody. We're out of here. Peace.